everyone. Welcome to another episode of Faerie, Fable, Librarians. I'm Simona.
I'm Katie.
And today we're going to be discussing Hocus Pocus 2, which premiered on Disney Plus it premiered this month, right? Early this
It
month?
actually premiered September 30th.
Oh, September 30th. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's a direct sequel for the 1993 film Hocus Pocus. And, I mean, obviously it's set many years after the first film, but essentially it is a sequel.
Mhm.
So what I did like about the film is that it opens up with a flashback to 1600 Salem, and we see the Sanderson sisters as young girls. And what we learn essentially is that they've always been outcasts. And I thought the young actresses who play Winifred, Sarah, and Mary did a great job. I think they really captured the personal quirks, the mannerisms, and like the way that each of the sisters talk. And we learn about that they essentially live on their own. Their father and mother are not really in the picture. Winifred being the eldest, she takes care of her sisters. And we also learn how they came into their powers and how they received the book. So I liked the beginning. I thought it was really good. But that's about all I really liked about this film. I think it was trying to sort of recapture the magic and the quirkiness of the original film. I just don't think it did a very good job. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked seeing the Sanderson sisters as young girls, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to learn that the young actresses actually spoke with the actresses who play the Sanderson sisters as adults.
Mm-hmm.
This movie, I liked it, but I also didn't necessarily like it. I liked it for the nostalgia. I liked seeing like Gilbert with his flashbacks, who has and Gilbert is this character who turned the Sandersons Museum into a magic shop,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know that I liked necessarily. I think it would have been better had it still been like a museum, still like old and decrepit and kind of like forgotten, and then having the two girls in the movie go there to do the ritual, like the birthday ritual,
Yeah.
only because I feel like then it would have harkened back to the movie from 1993. I also found like the three main girls who were supposed to be the three main girls in this movie. I don't think they were written well. I think that they were I feel like they were forgettable.
No.
I mean, I'm sorry to say, and the three main characters from the original movie, Max, Danny, and Allison. Thank you.
I looked up their names.
Thank you. They were so well developed. You got where they were coming from. You knew their story, and so you remembered the characters.
Mm-hmm.
These three characters, yeah, two of them are still really good friends, but then this other friend is has kind of like broken away.
Yeah.
But you're not told why. You just so that she's hanging out with these cooler, popular people in high school, and we're supposed to understand that that's why that she's broken away from the friendship that they used to have, which I guess that they're trying to infer it, but they didn't do a good job at inferring it. Also, I want to say that the 1993 film was far more darker than this film.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that I necessarily appreciated. I loved the 1990. I love the 1993 version because of its darkness, and I love the Sanderson sisters because they are the quote unquote dark witches.
Yeah, and I was reading a review, and I agree with everything that you said, and I will return to that. So even with one thing that I read was that the new film was trying to modernize certain things for modern sensibilities. Now, one of the issues I have with that idea is that even the 1993 film, while it's dark, nothing about it I feel would be objectionable to modern day audiences.
That yeah, no, it's not. I mean, it's not like the 1993 movie was made in the 70s or the 80s where I would think that that would be a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
It was made within the last 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 3 years old when the movie came out.
So
I'm
I didn't really
32
I
now,
didn't really
so
understand that.
yeah, I don't understand that either.
Because essentially the Sanderson sisters are still very much the same. They are, and there will be spoilers just as an FYI. So the Sanderson sisters are the same. They are brought back to the present time. They're a little discombobulated. They sort of adjust rather quickly, as with the previous film, which makes sense because you can't have the film stretching out while they're trying to figure out things. You need to move along with the plot, so I understand that. And they return to what they were doing in the previous film. They want to maintain their youth, maintain their eternal life, so they need to murder children. So it's the same thing as in the first film.
Right.
Now, the first film, you do see them sucking the soul of a child, but it's not graphic in any way because this film is a comedy. It's not really supposed to be a deep horror where, oh my
No.
God, you're going to be terrified. It's a comedy film.
It's a dramedy.
It's a dramedy.
Yeah.
So I did not see anything questionable, objectionable in the film. So I don't understand what they had to modernize or what kind of sensibilities they wanted to avoid. What I do realize is with the new trio of Becky, Izzy, and Cassie, is that Becca has her moments when she has some key buzzwords that she says. So I guess that's what modernizes it.
What were the buzzwords?
I think she mentions like the patriarchy, or like there's a scene when she's in the magic shop and what's his name? Gilbert, I'm sorry, Gilbert, who was probably one of the characters I actually kind of enjoyed. Gilbert says something to her and she mentions something about men being afraid of women's power, which whatever. I was like, okay. Like, I rolled my eyes at that point. It's almost not necessary. But like Katie said, they are forgettable characters. So Becca and Izzy of the trio are the ones that are still sort of friends, or what I was about to do air quotes. They are friends. They have this birthday ritual. Cassie, who was formerly part of the circle, for some reason decided she didn't want to be a part of the circle, but like I said, and Katie mentioned, that's not really explained. So she's dating the football player, which you think he's going to be some
airhead jock.
Which he kind of is.
Yeah.
An airhead jock, so they sort of didn't break away from that kind of stereotype.
It's not a modernization at all.
Yeah, but he almost is forgettable. I mean, he serves no real purpose to the plot. He's not anyone who's sort of getting in the way of the friendship. He's just there to be comedic relief.
And the fact, too, that he teases Izzy?
Probably.
We're terrible. Because of the birthday ritual, it's he's a bully. But then when they get to a certain part in the movie where they break up the party that Cassie's having at her house, and all this other stuff, and he goes, I'm not making fun of you. And then Izzy has to explain to him that the things he says is making fun of them and all this other stuff. And he goes, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I'm like, that's not, no.
Although
it's not how that works.
I didn't really see him as a bully. I saw him more as, because even the scene where they're like in their science class or whatever, and Izzy and Becca are sitting together, Cassie comes in, Izzy and Becca look at her like, oh, like what could be? Then Cassie's boyfriend plops himself down next to her, and there's like a little banter, but nothing that I saw as bullying. And at one point, Becca starts mumbling these words. And he says, oh my God, witch, or whatever she says. They're just vegan foods, or whatever she says. So even trying to paint them as these outcasts, it didn't really work in my, I don't know. Because,
and what worked with Max in the original movie, in the 1993 movie, as being the quote-unquote outcast, is that he's from California. Yeah. His family had moved from California to Massachusetts. He hears the story of the Sanderson sisters in class. from his teacher, and he doesn't get it because
Yes.
he's not from Massachusetts. He didn't grow up in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I should say Salem specifically, where the witch hunt had the witch trials and the hysteria had happened in that town in the 1600s. So that made perfect sense as to, you know, why he would be really flippant about the lore of Salem and why he would light the black candle, and that's how the Sanderson sisters, you know, come back to life. And I understand not wanting to do the same story essentially,
But they essentially did.
but yeah, they essentially did.
What I would have liked maybe is if one of the girls would have been like a daughter of, like, assuming Max and Allison continued with their whirlwind romance that they began in the first movie.
I don't think it was that much of a whirlwind.
Yeah, like, so assuming that they got married, or it could have even been Danny, like Danny fell in love with a boy from the town, and one of those girls is their daughter. So there's a connection basically where, like, for example, if this was the case, you know, Danny's daughter or son is aware of what happened.
Right.
So when the Sanderson sisters come, there's a greater urgency because, okay, I gotta protect my town or whatever.
Right.
I don't, like I said, because they do rehash the story. It's the same thing, only instead of being two siblings and the girl that the brother likes, it's three best friends. It's the same story.
Right.
The Sandersons return. Those three best friends have to defeat the Sandersons. So they didn't really change much, and they had many instances where they were trying to allude to things that happened in the first film.
Right, like Gilbert's flashbacks,
Yeah.
which I enjoyed seeing because
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, it's the original movie that I grew up watching, kind of a deal. Again, a nostalgic
And, you know, and
movie.
trying to paint Gilbert as the villain, I didn't really see him as the villain because it's
I
almost
think
like
it was more of like a misguided.
Yeah, but I feel like they were trying to move him in that direction, then change their minds, because even his motivation for wanting to bring back three child killers, like, I was trying to understand it other than I was fascinated by magic. Like, that alone doesn't cut it.
He also said that he believed that they were misunderstood because of the legends of them in Salem. But I mean, that's what he said. The character Gilbert said that he believes that they were misunderstood, where we all know that that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
So he's like that like misguided villain that falls flat.
Yeah. You know, they brought back the zombie
Billy
guy.
Bones.
Yeah, which was nice, and they finally set the record straight that he was not involved with any of the sisters or whatever, which
He kissed Winifred once,
Yeah.
and that was it.
And Winifred decided that they were soulmates.
Yeah, like any 16-year-old would.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was nice that they brought him back.
I liked seeing them get the book by the other witch in Salem. Again, Salem is filled with witch lore. So it makes sense that would happen in that way. Again, I still wish that instead of being in this clearing in the woods where the Sanderson sisters come back, I wish it was in, like, the home that they had shared in, like in the first movie, where it's now older, it's more decrepit, it's
and it's almost like
almost forgotten kind of a thing.
I agree too. And what I kind of wish they would have explained was, did Allison's family bequeath this museum rich in history to this guy who then turns into a man? Like, that part, that doesn't make sense. I believe it should have stayed as a museum.
Yeah.
Especially someone like him who seemed to have reverence for the, like, why would he convert it?
Right, exactly. And it wasn't even, the museum wasn't even in town in the the first movie. In this movie, it's like it's in the middle of town, and I was looking at it as, why?
I don't know. It's almost like they definitely wanted to not break away from the original. Like, they didn't want to sort of almost do like what Disney's doing with all their live action adaptations. Essentially the same story, just live action. So they didn't want to do like the same, which in a way they are. It is the same story at the bare bones level.
Yeah.
With just the difference of now you have new characters that no one really cares about.
Right.
And I think that's also what bothers me too. Like as
Yeah.
you stated with the original children's cast, like you had some investment in their journey.
Yeah.
With these three friends, there is no emotional investment.
No, none of the witches are trying to capture them to suck the soul out of them because they're not
Yeah.
young enough. Danny was young enough. She
Yeah.
was playing a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And so you had an emotional interest in wanting
Yeah, because
Max.
Max wants to protect his sister.
Right, exactly.
You know, in addition, now he's feeling like a greater motivation, I guess, to save the town as well. With these three friends, you know, as with the first film, there are hints that Allison may be a witch. And I was reading theories.
You
of
mean Izzy?
No, in the first film, Allison, I was reading fan theories that she may have been a good witch or a white witch, however it's referred to in the film.
White witch.
Yeah, and even I think Winifred's, ooh, like she says, little witch, and the fact that she like knows about the salt and.
Well, she didn't know that offhand. She read about it in the book.
But they were playing with that. In this film, they make Becca an actual white witch. And at the end, there's this moment where, like, the three friends, because Cassie decides that she's going to rebond and join them on this quest. The conflict resolution is resolved really quickly, considering how much angst Becca and Itzy, particularly Becca, feel about Cassie flat out abandoning them. Mm-hmm. So they join together, and now it becomes almost this feminist statement, like where Itzy says, friends share power, or witches share power. Like, oh my god, I was like, give me a break. It's like not earned.
They were trying to show a bond of sisterhood. The sisterhood. Where is the sisterhood?
Yeah, it's like
the sisterhood was just between Izzy and Becca. Cassie was like this outlier that had left and then decided to come back just to make that scene with casting away Winifred after both of her sisters were vanished with the spell that they had done. And so it's like they were forcing a plot that wasn't well written, and that they missed an opportunity. They missed an opportunity to do a really great sequel, and it fell flat.
Yeah, I think that's also when you sort of rely upon the nostalgia of a film.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there are people that would argue that even the first film was not tightly written. I mean, I won't really discuss that. I just know that the first film, I enjoyed it more when I watched it.
I love the first film.
Where I was like, okay, because like I said, there's no emotional investment in these three characters that you're essentially trying to follow.
The only real emotional investment you have is for the Sanderson sisters.
Yes, because there is that moment when Winifred uses the Magica Mystica? No.
Magica Maxima?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
The Magica Maxima spell, which is this spell that you're not supposed to use because there will be dire consequences, and Book, and his character gets more development, he has a bit more personality, is trying to prevent Winifred from using it, but Winifred decides, nope, I'm not going to listen to you. She uses it, and the price that she pays is that Sarah and Mary fade away. So there's this scene when Winifred, is approached by Becca, Izzy, and Cassie, and Becca explains, that's the price that you pay. You lost your sisters. And Winifred has this moment of realization that the sisters that she's essentially taken for granted throughout the entire first and second film, because she's very bossy. She is obviously the one with the brains of the bunch, but she's still very bossy. And she realizes what she did. Now, while it is emotional, at the same time, it's not earned, because you're essentially asking us to feel sympathy for these child-killing witches. I don't think so. So while you may love the sisterhood, it's essentially like if they were three serial killer, like, yeah, I don't think
that's a little bit extreme.
Yeah, but still they're child-killing witches.
They're soul-sucking witches.
Who want to soul-suck more children. So, I don't know.
So, I mean, like, the whole first movie established the fact that these are dark witches. The Sanderson sisters are dark witches, that they want to keep their youth and their beauty by sucking the souls of children. Mm-hmm. And that's a great villain.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Sanderson sisters because of that in the first
Mm-hmm.
movie, because they make great villains. And
Mm-hmm.
again, because of that, then you have greater emotional investment in wanting Max and Allison to save Danny and to
Yes.
protect Danny.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, yes, they still want to do the same thing,
Yeah.
but the three main characters, Izzy, Becca, and Cassie, are too old to actually have conflict with the witches and then thus generate that emotional investment that you had with Max and the rest of the original
Exactly.
cast.
And also, like, they decided to throw in that the mayor of the town is a direct descendant of the pastor that essentially led the witch hunts against the Sanders. But even that connection is thrown in there.
Right, that connection was never there in the first movie to begin with.
It's thrown in there, and nothing really comes of it. Like, there's nothing at stake. I mean, they take his blood, but it's not like they're holding him captive. Like, what would
They don't even really take his blood. They take Cassie and take her blood.
Yeah.
But it's, again, the danger level in this movie is not as high as in the first movie. And again, that comes to my point of that I had made earlier, is that the first movie was much darker. This movie was lighter, and I don't know if that is also coming from the modernization for modern sake,
which is dumb too, because I don't know what the age level is supposed to be for this film. I mean, even if you're watching with a young child, there may be some elements that may be too spooky. So I don't, if you're making this film, it's going to be for fans,
right? And I, like I said, I love the first movie.
Yeah.
The first movie came out when I was 3 years old. I probably watched it one Halloween season when I was like 5 or 6. The only part in that movie that actually freaked me out was when Billy Bones rose from the grave.
Yeah.
Other than that, I had no issue with it.
Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, so that doesn't make any sense, because, like I said, there's nothing questionable or objectionable in the first film.
Right.
I watched it. There's like, it's not like they use crude language or there's like blatant sexism, because Allison she's actively involved in the very first film in helping to defeat the witch, and it's her knowledge that helps out Max.
Yeah.
And there's Danny,
who's also actively participating in trying to free herself.
So I don't know why they had to remove the darker elements. I mean, I don't know why they decided to do this.
And as a fan of the original movie, thinking, like, when I first watched this movie, I thought it was an okay movie. But then after talking to you about it and all this, and now I'm upset.
Because
I'm upset.
I think they could have done more with it. Even, like I said, introducing Cassie, there's no investment. It's almost like you were once best friend with this person. This person decided, I'm going. Like, even Cassie's motivations, I assumed, like, even when she talks about it, it's almost like it resulted from a misunderstanding, which could occur. But I would have expected maybe that she generally felt, I need to grow up, I need to form, which happens in friendships. Some people remain friends, some break away and form other friendship groups. I would have understood that had Cassie decided, okay, I've outgrown you, I'm moving away. Like, it would have made more sense if Becca was the daughter of the mayor and they decide because Becca now has a reason to be emotionally invested.
Yeah.
I have no reason to be emotionally invested in a girl that was formerly my friend and decided, you're not cool enough for me, I'm kicking you to the curb. Like, I'm not saying if I saw something happen, I wouldn't get help, but there would be no emotional investment for me.
Right.
So Cassie was just thrown in there to make the friends come. It's very weak. There's no investment.
Cassie was thrown in to make the defeat of the Sanderson sisters work within this iteration of the sequel.
Like I said, it falls flat.
It falls very flat.
Like, the characters Becca and Izzy have no reason to want to save Cassie. I think it would have made more sense if Becca was the daughter of the mayor. Now they've kidnapped her father. Okay, now I need to get my act together because they want to hurt my father.
I mean, and to your point earlier, it would have made more sense to have one of these girls or two of these girls be the daughters of Danny and Max, even like, have them be cousins, be friends.
Because now that throws in an extra thing where the Sandersons now want revenge. I mean,
Right.
even the mayor thing, okay, fine, I kind of understand that, but like if Winifred finds out, oh, you're the daughter of Danny, that tricksy little girl, and her brother,
Yeah.
Because
You're
now
the daughters of
yeah,
this family that
because now they want revenge, and now the stakes are higher. That just makes more sense conflict wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what were some other?
We're tearing into this movie.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Like I said, the whole ending, while it is kind of emotional, I felt personally I can't feel sympathy for child murdering witches. While the love for one another is admirable, it's trying to elicit sympathy from characters that don't necessarily deserve it.
And and that was all established in the first movie.
Yeah, and I still I don't think they made like, how did they come back? Like, I know you said they explained it, I missed it.
So when Gilbert gives Becca is the main character, or is Izzy the main character?
Becca.
Okay. When it's Becca's 16th birthday, when they go to the magic shop, Gilbert gives Becca a gift. It's a candle that looks really gnarly.
Yeah.
They go to the clearing, which is supposed to be this place where magic thrives and all this other stuff, and they're both Becca and Kat and Izzy are sitting facing each other. The candles between them. They recite a bunch of words that they've recited forever, and the candle's lit. It's a black flame candle, and that's how the Sanderson sisters revive.
I understand that part.
Yeah.
But in the first film, the Sanderson sisters basically, when they're in the grave, the sun rises and they go poof. Like Winifred turns to stone and then she like poofs.
Yeah.
Sarah and Mary poof.
Yep.
So, well, what if? I guess we would have, because the first one makes it seem as if they have been definitively defeated. They are now dead.
Yeah.
What would have made more sense probably is you brought them back to like hibernation or of some kind. Like, I'm trying to think of a film where it's also a direct sequel and they bring back, but it kind of makes sense that they could bring those people back.
I can't think of it.
Yeah. It's like you got the feeling that they were definitively dead, not that they've sort of been put back into a temporary hibernation. Oh, it's kind of like, if you ever seen the film Jeepers Creepers, where the creeper, it's this character that eats people, or every 25 years he has a chance to come back and whatever. Like, that would have made more sense. Like, okay, they've been put into a hibernation, but come 25 years later, they can be brought back. Not where the assumption is they've been killed. So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense. Like, the black flame candle bit, I understand it.
Yeah.
But in the first film, they made it seem as if they were gone. Basically,
well, that's
down
what they
for
did.
The count.
That's
So
it wasn't
like
wasn't like that they were sent back into another
so
realm
how
or
could
anything.
They come back?
That was never said.
Exactly.
It just happened.
So that's a weak part too. I know.
I think though the fact that they were in the clearing, where in the beginning of the movie the witch that gives Winifred the book says that this is a place where magic gathers. It's very powerful. The witch covens always meet here to replenish their magic.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. But
it's still weak.
again,
I'm sorry.
well, no, it is weak. It's a weak plot point.
Because you've also changed your mythology in the second film. Like, I understand you, like, I don't mind, I'm not opposed to sequels. My thing is, and it's happened in other shows that I love, where it's like, okay, fine, this is an inconsistency. Like Buffy, and I know everything comes back to Buffy, but there are moments where something was well thought out, and you have crumbs of a much larger plot thread in a previous season. Yeah. Buffy used to do that pretty well. But there were moments where this is sort of stretching plausibility. Now you're adding it to fit your narrative. It's not nicely integrated.
Yeah.
And I feel with this film, they were adding sort of mythology to the story. Like, oh, it's a sacred place where... Then maybe, like I said, the home was in the woods. Maybe it would have made sense that they built their home on that nexus of power.
Right.
That's where
that's what I'm saying. That's why I was saying, like, it's to have the Sanderson sisters' home become a joke shop in the middle of town when it wasn't in the first movie, where it was like this derelict museum in the outskirts of town, it would have made more sense.
Yeah, so because then I could see, okay, they built their home in the woods, they built it on a nexus of power. That's how they were able to maintain their strength. So now in the first film, they've just been put back into like hibernation, for lack of a better term, but they're not dead. Now in the second film, the girls return to the derelict house, they do their little witchery, and that is what enables the Sanderson sisters to come back.
With the black flame candle.
That would have made perfect sense to me. But when you establish that they've been defeated, as in the end, you can't now say, oh, they came back because the woods is like a... No. Doesn't make sense. That's sort of cheating. It's cheating.
It is cheating. Well, no, it is cheating. And as we've said, it's a weak plot point.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's all really I have to say about this movie.
I mean,
there were funny moments. Like, I like that they brought back, I'm sorry, his name is Bobby, the headless guy. Billy. I liked Billy. I even liked Billy in the first film. Like, I really enjoyed him. I enjoyed, like, I don't know how many of you know that, but in the first film, there's a scene when Billy opens his mouth and moths fly out. The actor actually had those moths in his mouth, and he released them. And I forgot, something ended up happening because of that, but he really released them from his mouth. That wasn't like fake.
That's method acting right there.
Yeah, and something ended up happening as a result of that, but that he really had them in his mouth.
Did he swallow one?
I don't know, like, I remember, like, reading something, and I don't know if he did swallow or something happened as a result, but I thought it was cool that it wasn't, like, fake, like, he really released all those moths.
And like, another thing, just one more thing that I want to point out, too, is that neither the actors who played Allison, Max, or Danny came back for a cameo or anything, which would have been helpful in tying in the first movie to the second movie as well.
And I don't know whether that was because they didn't want to, or maybe they weren't asked. Like, sometimes...
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't even know that they're acting anymore either.
Yeah. Like I said, I think what would have been better, as we've said, would have been if the three children had some connection to the original three children. More, I think emotional investment is what is needed in this film.
And the plot could have been written a lot better. I feel like they were forcing along a plot, again, to meet modern sensibilities, which again, doesn't
makes no
make sense
to me. Like, whatever those modern sensibilities are, whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I'm sure there are people that enjoyed it. Like, if you are one of those people that you really enjoyed the second film, we'd love to hear to read your comments and see what you think of the film, why you enjoyed it.
And I'm going to say I enjoyed it for the entertainment value, but being, again, a fan from the original movie, this sequel really fell short of the mark for me.
Yeah. And are you someone who enjoyed some aspects of the film but didn't like others, or are you someone who, like us, or I'll say like me, didn't really enjoy the film at all? We'd love to read those comments and see what you guys think.
What I did love was the fact that neither of the Sanderson sisters' characters changed from the first movie to the second movie. Sarah was still ditzy. I
feel like they toned down her ditziness.
They definitely did tone down their ditziness, but she still was ditzy. Like when Winifred says spread out and Sarah starts spreading out. I love that the actress who plays Mary, like, she still moved her mouth and still, like, sniffed around like a dog and stuff like that, which I love that aspect of her character. And Winifred was still bossy. So, I mean, again, nostalgia all around, but overall, I won't watch this movie again.
Yeah, I loved Winifred's nails. By the way, for the person who did Winifred's nails... I applaud you, because I was staring at them the entire time that Winifred was on screen. It's like, I love your nails. I love their outfits too. They did change from the first film. They're not exactly the same.
Yeah.
I did kind of like that when they go to get their brooms, Mary, instead of riding a vacuum, she's riding like these. Well, they're like the hover vacuums.
They're the the Garmin vacuums.
So they're still vacuums, only modernized, which I kind of like that. It was kind of cute.
It was, but she could have
You
still
wanted
been.
her vacuum.
I wanted her vacuum cleaner. And instead of a mop, Sarah was riding a Swiffer.
Well, you know why? Because think of it this way. Modern audiences have never seen a broom. They've only seen Swiffers. So they wouldn't make the connection.
You mean the mop?
Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
know. I guess modern people don't know what mops are, so Swiffers are more. I don't know. Like, it's like certain things would make sense. I don't know how. Let us know. Like, how many of you folks use mops or you use Swiffers? Like, I don't know. I still think people use regular vacuums too, so I don't know why
I
that
don't know
change
how
was
many.
made.
Yeah, I don't know how many households use the Garmin robotic vacuums. My house certainly doesn't have one.
Yeah,
We
so
still
I
use a
don't-
vacuum cleaner, so
So those kind of changes, I'm not sure why they were made. I think even if you may use, like, I'm sure a lot of people still are familiar with mops. You're familiar with the vacuum, so I don't know why those changes were made. It would have made more sense maybe if, I don't know, if like, and even in the original film, you don't see anyone with cell phones, which in the 90s there were cell phones. I could understand maybe if you made that change where, like, instead of the, I don't know if it would have been the Nokia flip. No, that was a little later. In the early
that was-
90s, it would have. I don't know. I was very young in the night, so I don't recall what the cell phones looked like.
The
But
cell
I could see if you
phones-
made that change, like you
yeah.
modernized the cell phone.
I
Yeah.
93 cell phones weren't around.
Well, they were just being not as.
No, they weren't around. The first cell phone my mom ever had was a black Verizon flip phone, and I got it in like 90.
There were
7,
cell phones
98.
going back to the 80s, but they weren't very popular until the late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay, well they weren't popular.
Yeah. So yeah, like, whatever. Yeah. So yeah.
Thanks
So-
for that, Joe.
So yeah, I could probably say if there was that change, but sometimes certain changes, it didn't make sense. I think you still could have kept the vacuum, the mop, or whatever, like, because Winifred still gets a broom,
Yeah.
or whatever. So
She still gets a broom.
but maybe those are like little things that were just nitpicking. But I think sometimes things have to kind of make sense, So like I was even thinking about. Like I was reading one of the R.L. Stein, his first book in the I was gonna call it Goosebumps. It's not Goosebumps, in the Fear Street series.
Okay.
And there was mention, now I can't remember what it's called, but it was like a precursor to the modern copier machine. I remember when I was reading it, I had no clue because the first book was written I think in 81 or 82, and I had to look it up. So I can understand maybe if a key element of the story most people wouldn't know, like there's nothing about the first film. Yeah, the clothing, I guess, would date it, but nothing else really about the first film would need, I think, much explaining from younger people now. So I don't know. Certain changes really don't make much sense to me. But anyway, if you haven't watched it, watch it. Like, I'm not gonna say don't watch it. You don't have to listen to me.
Yeah, no, this discussion
Hmm.
should not deter you from watching the movie. If you want to watch the movie, go ahead and watch the movie. Formulate your own opinions about it. This is just our opinion about it.
Yeah, I think some things just
Fell
should
flat.
remain unresurrected, for lack of a better term. Like, I don't think everything needs a sequel. Yeah. So yeah. In conclusion, there were funny. I really enjoyed the Sanderson sisters as young girls. I thought that was the most entertaining aspect of this movie, and the
Yeah.
rest kind of fell flat for me. There was no investment for me. So those would be my final thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree. I like seeing the Sanderson sisters as young girls, but the rest of the movie kind of fell flat, again, because of no real emotional investment.
Yeah, so in conclusion, let us know what you think. We love reading your comments. Like and subscribe. We enjoy that as well. And we'll see you next time. Bye
Bye.
everyone.